Good day, Internet. This is DTNS Live for Tuesday, April 3rd. It's May 13th, 2025. I don't know what day it is anymore. From Studio Animal House, I know where I am. I'm Sarah Lane.
From Studio 7 in Los Angeles, I'm Tom Merritt.
It is indeed May the 13th, and may the 13th be with you.
May the 13th be with you, too. Who are you?
I am Roger Chang. I am the show's producer.
DTNS Live is made possible by its listeners. Thanks to all of you, including Chris Allen, Mark Gibson, Reed Fischler, and hey, we got a new patron, everybody. Welcome, Shane.
Hey, Shane. So good to have you.
Shane's the best.
Well, Shane is the best, and all our patrons are equally the best. All are welcome, all are the best. And welcome everyone to DTNS Live, the show where we discuss the tech news to help us all understand it a little bit better, even though I rarely know what month it is, but I do know what year it is. It's 2025. For some reason, yes, it is, Tom. Yeah, wake up. For some reason, 2024 and even 2023, it may have been sort of post-COVID stuff. I just was like, I don't know what year it is. How old am I? And 2025, I'm like, we got it. It's a good, I don't know. The numbers feel solid to me.
Yeah, is it because it's that 25, 50, you know, like
feels
every
like an
25
quarter mark.
Kind.
Yeah, that quarter century mark.
It is very much it is very much how you mark the passage of a century, right? It's you're at you're 25. You've
Quarter century.
Yeah. Piece of a pie. A quarter of it.
You know,
What kind?
I mean, hopefully BlackBerry. But
BlackBerry would be good. I'm into that.
But if it's
if you had to characterize the first 25 years of the 21st century, what kind of pie would you characterize it as?
Oh,
Wait, this is a family show. Maybe we shouldn't ask that.
Oh, yeah, no.
Does pie get
It looks like chocolate, but it's not.
Oh yeah.
No, it would be.
Chocolate cream pie was never my favorite. I mean, I'll go pumpkin. I'll say, it's just a mishmash of who even knows what. And
I would
spice.
say lemon meringue. It had a very nice top to it, but as you go deeper into the pie, it doesn't.
I like how we're talking about it as if we're in the past, like those first 25 years.
The first 25 years is like the meringue, and then you hit the pie portion.
I don't like the meringue portion of a lemon meringue. I like the lemon portion.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like
we're on different sides of the lemon meringue divide.
People approach it in different ways. People love the pie, hate the meringue. Some people love the meringue, so in the pie. And other people like, I don't know. Can I order cherry instead?
People have lots of different ideas about what they would like. I was just talking to somebody about what's the creme brulee. I don't like creme brulee. I don't think it tastes bad. I'm just like, I don't like the, you have to like.
You know what?
It's like skating on ice on top. It just doesn't work for me, and other people love it.
It is one of those things that sounds incredibly decadent. Like what's the egg thing? Eggs Benedict. Like when people say Eggs Benedict, like, it just sounds...
I like Eggs Benedict.
Oh, no. I mean, I love both, but it just sounds very rich and like immediate heart attack, and I've never eaten it since the one time I've tried to eat either one.
Really?
Yeah, it just
You're
sounds...
missing out.
Only Eggs Benedict
I know.
Once?
I feel like creme brulee over promises sometimes. I've had some really good ones, but sometimes it's like, you just hardened some sugar over the top. This is not that good. Whereas Eggs Benedict rarely disappoints.
But they both sound like they're going to clog up your veins.
Holland for days.
Hollands and sauce.
Tom Holland probably has some thoughts about this, but we also have thoughts about tech news. That's actually why we're here today.
All right.
If you were at all confused. So let's get into it, starting with the quick hits.
Samsung launched the Galaxy S25 Edge starting at $1,099 and only 5.8 millimeters thick with a 6.7-inch display. It shares high-end specs with the S25 Ultra, including a 200-megapixel main camera, but battery life is slightly less with 3,900 milliamp hours and 25 watts of charging. The S25 Edge runs Android 15, but also the One UI 7 and ships on May 30th.
Apple has partnered with brain-computer interface company Synchron to let users control Apple devices with their thoughts. using a brain implant called the Stentrode, meant to help people with conditions like ALS or spinal injuries. It reads brain signals and can translate at least some of them into on-screen actions using Apple's Switch control software. FDA approval not happening yet. It's still multiple years away. But Apple plans to release a software standard for developers later this year.
Microsoft announced it will lay off more than 6,000 employees. That's its biggest cut since it let go 10,000 in 2023. Cuts will come across multiple levels, including some management, and across multiple business units. So it's not concentrated in one part of the company.
DJI announced the Mavic 4 Pro with a triple camera system that can shoot up to 6K at 60 frames per second with 16 stops of dynamic range. That's better than most drones and better than even a lot of cameras. It also has a new foldable RC Pro 2 controller. It's available now in Canada for $2,049 rather. $249 sounds pretty good. No, it's $2,049. Plus Europe and the UK is not launching in the US though, and no info on when or if it will.
I think that's going to depend on whether DJI gets one of those exemptions or not. A week ahead of Google I/O, Google showed off its new Material 3 expressive design, which Google keeps saying has more emotion. It does have smoother animations, some other blur effects and things like that. Google also announced that Gemini is expanding beyond smartphones, so it'll show up in Wear OS, Android Auto, which will be fun. You'll be able to talk to your car. Google TV and Google XR also getting Gemini.
Nvidia announced it will sell more than 18,000 of its top chips to Saudi Arabia's Humain. Its first deployment will use its GB300 Blackwell chips.
Humain.
So, speaking of accessibility, Apple previewed new accessibility features beyond what we talked about before with their sign up with Synchron. This is stuff that's coming to iOS 19, macOS 16, and other platforms. And this is stuff that gets leaked out ahead of WWDC, which is just, a few weeks away at this point, which is happening starting June 9th. So one of the cool things, and there are many, is accessibility nutrition labels, as Apple calls it, in the App Store. And this is basically like it's like buying a popsicle. Like, what's in this? Is it good for me? Does it have ingredients I want or not? It shows which apps support things like voiceover, voice control, larger text, sufficient contrast, reduced motion, captions. All stuff that you may, we've all downloaded an app in the past and been like, oh, it's not exactly what I thought it would be. So this is definitely accessibility focused.
Yeah, Apple did this with privacy first. That's where they started calling it it's like a nutrition label, but for privacy. And it would list all the data that was collected for you.
Yeah, like how private do you need to be?
It has 10% of your daily allowance of security.
Right.
And so this is basically the same format, but with accessibility features like voiceover and stuff that you talked about. So it's good. It's very helpful if you are looking for accessible apps. It's going to be able to help you find those faster.
Totally. We also have a magnifier app for Mac. Magnifier, the app, launched for iPhone and iPad back in 2016. So a lot of people are like, yeah, wasn't that around? It's now native to the Mac. It's meant for somebody who is vision impaired to zoom in, read text, detect objects around them. The Mac version works with either an iPhone that's connected to Continuity Camera, the app, or an attached USB camera. So you don't have to use an iPhone and a Mac in conjunction. However, Apple had, I kind of, because I was sort of like, what is it like? What is this for? Apple had a video. If anybody hasn't seen it, I think it's very illustrative. You have a woman who goes into a college class, and it's a big lecture room, and she's sitting back pretty far, and she's able to zoom in and do a bunch of stuff with the slides that the professor is using. That's far enough away from her that she wouldn't be able to see it otherwise, and she doesn't have to sit in the front row. Or ask somebody to help her out with that. Very cool as well.
Yeah. Have you ever used the magnifier app on iOS?
I have not. No. I know a lot of people who do, though, because they're like, my eyes are going.
Well, it's interesting because my first impression when I opened it was, well, I can do this in the camera. Because you can pinch to zoom on a camera, and a lot of people use the camera that way. They may not realize the magnifier app is even there, but the magnifier app just has better controls. It's like, well, you're not trying to take a picture, so we're going to get rid of all the camera controls, and we're going to put controls in that are meant to help you zoom in, help you magnify, help you augment things. You can change color and all of that. So I think this is a good reminder that even exists as a tool for people who might need it. And then the fact that it's going to be available on the Mac is a nice to have. I don't think it's a have to have, but it's a nice to have, especially like in that video you were talking about in a classroom situation or a lecture situation, maybe you're at a conference or something, for you to be able to see what's up there. I thought one of the coolest things was that you can zoom in on text. Let's say somebody's got a bunch of text up on a whiteboard, and then it can convert that text by image recognition. Yeah, exactly. And it turns it into like text on your screen, like that you could manipulate and be able to change background colors and stuff. Thought that was really cool.
I mean, I've always been impressed with the way Apple, and especially in iOS, has integrated a lot of these features. My biggest experience with this is kind of the senior mode that you do on iOS in order to make it a little more easier to read. It enlarges the icons. It reduces some of the clutter by taking away some of the options, because certain individuals at a certain age, it becomes a little too much to navigate that face, and so you can have this setup where it simplifies. And having all these additional features, especially a thing like the magnifying glass, I can't tell you the number of people who are doing what Tom has been saying, but because they're trying to read something, either because it's really dark and their eyes aren't at the same acuity level as they were maybe 30 years ago. It's just simple, just reducing an ounce of frustration. I think it goes a long way to improving the experience for the user. And kudos to Apple for, being unashamedly very user friendly from the get go.
Before we even started this conversation today, over in Discord, Ryan in Minneapolis was talking about being blue-green deficient vision-wise. And which I've not heard of. I know that people are colorblind sometimes, but it was like, no, it's a very specific blue-green thing. Now imagine somebody has put together a whole PowerPoint presentation. You're sitting in a lecture hall, and you can't discern between the two. So this would be, this is a very niche example, but this would be something that I think could be really helpful for someone who's just like, it's so hard to explain why this doesn't work for me, but it doesn't.
Yeah, you can mess around with those settings and make it work better.
Yeah. We have a new accessibility reader for easier on-screen reading across Apple devices. This is meant for users with, let's say, dyslexia, also low vision, available across Apple devices, including the Vision Pro, to customize text, focus on content, options for font color and spacing, and support for spoken content. I know Rob Dunwood has talked in the past about, he has some form of dyslexia, and he has taught himself to read quite well, in a different way. And anybody out there who's like, this is actually really cool. The spacing and the colors and the customization of just how something might be laid out, whether it be a book or an article, we'd love to hear about that.
I would add that you don't even need to you don't even need to have dyslexia to take advantage of this. I actually use some of these in Android. There's certain features that allow you to enlarge the text, because I can't really read my phone with my glasses. I can't, but my phone's out here. And so I pop off my glasses and I can read it, and it makes it less strenuous on my eyes. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't, for the lack of a better, it doesn't hurt when I read. On the phone, because it's not up to my face this way. And again, it's just one of those things that seems very innocuous and very simple, but it does improve the experience a great deal.
Yeah, the big thing here too is that this is not new. As Roger was saying, they've had this in Android, they've had it in iOS to enlarge text, but the accessibility reader can be launched from any app. So this is system-wide now. Yeah. You don't have an app. You're like, oh, this one doesn't work. Like it's just part of the toolkit.
And there's nothing more frustrating than trying to figure out how to do that one thing that seems like it just enlarge the text across different apps because they all have different hooks or access points to enable it.
Yeah.
We also got some updates to Braille access, live captions on Apple Watch, personal voice, which now requires just 10 phrases to set up. Used to be about 20, I believe, so that it knows that you're the person that it thinks you are. We also have some improvements to eye tracking, head tracking, sound recognition, a couple for CarPlay, and a few more. So this is a fun update, and it actually makes me all that more excited about WWDC because I'm like, if Apple has already just sort of thrown the stuff out there ahead of time, what else are we going to hear about?
Yeah, it's I think good to give accessibility its own time, and it can get lost when you announce these things at WWDC. So it's nice for them to do it. I'm guessing it's probably not a coincidence that the day Google made its big Material 3 expressive design announcement that Apple came out with this announcement. It's also like on the heels of the Samsung announcement.
Tom, how could they possibly know?
Yeah, well, Google announced it. they announced it last week, so it's not impossible that Apple was like, let's make sure that announcement comes out at the same time. But that said, these announcements are all good. The Braille stuff is really interesting. If you don't realize, there are special screens that you can attach that allow you to feel the Braille from text that is coming from a computer screen. That's already existed, but they've got better ways to support it now. And more features to support it. There's just all kinds of stuff like that in here, including the brain-computer interface that you talked about in the quick hits, Sarah. Like that is a roadmap feature. It's not something that's releasing now the way a lot of the features we're talking about are, but that's something down the road they want to build in so that you'll be able to interface with Apple's software using a brain-computer interface where you don't have to make gestures or touch anything.
Yeah, there were a lot of articles this morning that were sort of like, Apple's, the iPhones are going to be all brain powered. It's like, we are not there. We're not even a quarter to there right now. But yes, the idea that somebody who needs this, and perhaps somebody who just chooses this in the future also, is we are inching toward these brain implant ideas to be able to use devices that otherwise you can't use.
Nearer term, eye tracking and head tracking too, so that you can, without touching a device, be able to control it. You can dwell a glance, do certain controls. Just again, as part of the operating system. None of this stuff is new. Brain computer interfaces we talked about a lot, but building it into the operating system would be new. So it's interesting to see that on the roadmap.
Indeed. All right, Tom, all of ESPN is finally going to be available without a cable subscription later this year. Now, I thought ESPN Plus already did this. What is different?
Yeah, so if people are confused about ESPN Plus and ESPN, you're not alone. ESPN Plus is stuff you can't get on ESPN. So if you get cable TV and you get ESPN and ESPN2 and ESPNU, the stuff on there is different than ESPN Plus. ESPN Plus are games that they don't air on the cable TV networks. Every once in a while there's some overlap, but for the most part you're getting extra stuff. That's the plus. So you would be
getting
an ESPN,
that lacrosse game that is just not going to be shown somewhere else.
I use ESPN Plus for hockey because I get all the Blues local games through ESPN Plus, whether they're home or away, whereas not all Blues hockey games are on regular ESPN because they have to be part of their national broadcast. So there's a lot of stuff like that in there. ESPN, however, you have to get through a cable service, and that has been the holy grail for cord cutters. So many people have said, well, I'd cut cable, but I don't want to lose my sports. And a lot of times by sports, they really mean ESPN because it's not even just the sports, it's also Sports Center and all of that. And there wasn't an easy way to get just ESPN outside of getting a cable service. In fact, the only way to get ESPN over the internet was to get a cable service over the internet, something like YouTube TV or Hulu Plus Live.
Yeah.
Well, this is going to make it so that you don't have to subscribe to anything else if you just want ESPN's programming. And what do you think they're going to call it, Sarah?
Well, let me just
Pretend you haven't already looked at that story, and if you had to guess,
let me put on my blindfold.
yeah.
Would it be something just, I don't know, simple like ESPN?
Yes, exactly right. It's as if you read the story. No, they didn't want to call it ESPN streaming or ESPN or anything.
Because it would make people think, oh, it's something else.
It makes it hard to talk about it. In like, well, there's ESPN on cable and there's ESPN on the internet, but it is just ESPN because they know that's the future. That's where this is going. The price was also the thing everybody was debating because ESPN brings in a lot of money from cable subscriptions. Some people were thinking upwards of $50 a month might be what they would charge for this. $30. $30 a month is what you will pay if you want to get all of ESPN's programming, including ESPN Plus. So if you, for that $30, you're getting all the ESPN Plus stuff.
All the stuff. Like I can watch cheerleading competitions on ESPN4.
Yeah, whatever whatever is on cable and ESPN Plus all together, $30 a month. If that sounds expensive to you and you're like, well, I'm kind of on ESPN, but I don't want to pay that much, they are offering it in a bundle with Disney Plus and Hulu for $36 a month. So you're only paying $6 extra to get Disney Plus and Hulu, which is a screaming bargain. Mm-hmm. And if you sign up at launch for the first year, the bundle is $30 a month. So they're basically saying we're going to throw in Disney Plus and Hulu for free on top of ESPN for that first year.
Get you hooked in. Yeah, so I was polling some friends this morning because I knew we were going to talk about this, and like sports friends, people who watch a lot of sports, and they were like,
we have a lot of people in our chat room who are like, I don't watch sports, so I wouldn't pay a single dollar for this,
right?
Which
And
I totally understand.
Of course, I mean there are I don't pay for an anime channel, for example, but I respect the fact that people like the things that they like.
Sure.
So if you want all the sports, now I would consider myself a moderate sports fan. I care a lot about a few teams, and I don't really care about a lot of other sports, but I care enough that I want access to it. I will say on YouTube TV, which I do pay for and has crawled up in price quite a bit over the last few years, really all I watch on YouTube TV is sports. It's it's ESPN and a couple other channels, TNT, that when I'm we're in the playoffs right now for basketball and everything's mayhem, so I'm watching more sports than ever. But I really have only cared about cable for the most part for sports, because it's just hard to get otherwise unless you just happen to have a local game that's playing and you've got an OT antenna. So there's that. So I know that I'm not alone in that. I don't know that if I were to say, okay, no more YouTube TV because all I'm really watching is sports, I'm going to save a lot of money only paying $30 and kind of getting everything else. But then you don't really get everything else because some games aren't on ESPN. They'll talk about the games. You see it, you see it on SportsCenter, but it's not the game itself. So I think that's still a little confusing to me and maybe some other folks. But if you are just like, I want sports, that's all I want. I don't even care if I'm watching that lacrosse game or the cheerleading competition, which are so fun to watch, by the way, on ESPN. But, if you have all of that and that's all you care about, and you just don't care about, I don't know, Bravo or, all of the variety of other channels that you get bundled into a cable or a cable adjacent subscription, I think this seems pretty affordable. Although I did, when I was polling my friend, they were like, $30? What? And I'm like, but then you get everything. And it's like, oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
So as a non-sports programming connoisseur, does this also mean that you sidestep any blackout program, like if there are any sort of local?
The blackout situation is complicated and a separate issue. So blackouts happen. They've meant different things through different times. That's why it's hard to answer that question. Blackouts in the NFL used to mean they didn't sell enough tickets, so they're not showing it on the local channel. It's blacked out. That doesn't happen anymore. Blackouts these days, usually people mean oh, I want to, I got the MLB package that gives me all the games, but my local team, the Dodgers and the Angels, are not available on there. They're blacked out. So this really doesn't have much to do with that. Occasionally, ESPN programming is blacked out for local reasons on cable. And I assume that will be the same here. But what this is doing, I think a better way to think about it is if you have cable, the ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN Plus, ESPNU, ESPN News, SEC Network, ACC Network, ESPN Deportes, and any other of those ESPN channels will be available in one app, which you can actually do with your cable subscription right now. If you can authenticate, and that will continue. If you have cable, you can still authenticate with the ESPN app and get all that programming. But now you don't have to have the cable part. If you're like, that's the only thing I was getting cable for, you can spend a lot less, $30, and get all those channels.
I mean, this is attractive to me, even though I'm like, still cable. There's always that one day where you're like, oh, they're playing Seinfeld reruns for the next 40 hours. I'll just do that on my couch.
Sure.
But that's sort of the old way of doing things. I also, Tom, the blackout conversation, I love the reminder that it's like blackouts used to be, hey, you're local. Why don't you just go to the stadium?
Yeah.
Go to the stadium, buy a ticket, and have fun, like you're supposed to, instead of sitting at home not doing that. It kind of feels like, the conversation we have now about the home theater versus a movie theater.
Yeah, right. It's very similar because what the NFL ended up realizing was people still want to come to the game for other reasons, and we make a boatload of money, and we miss out on that money if we don't broadcast it in the local market. So they got around that eventually and made more money to boot because of that. So yeah, this is not going to get around those blackout restrictions. Those are related to regional sports deals, and those regional sports deals are fast falling apart. There's lots of streaming options now for your regional sports networks as well. So this isn't entirely related to that, although ESPN Plus has been snapping up some of those deals. So those will be available in this $30 a month subscription. For some people, this will actually give you more content too, because if you have a cable service that only has ESPN, ESPN2, and ESPN News, you can get this, and you'll also get ESPNU and SEC Network and ACC Network and ESPN Deportes. So this could expand the content available to you as well.
I know this is like they're trying it out, so they're giving some deals, but the whole idea of like the Disney Plus and Hulu bundle for what, $6 more per month?
Yeah.
That's if you're like, well, I mean, I care about sports, but my daughter doesn't. But the daughter's like, Disney Plus, yay, or Hulu, whatever. You can make this work for you. It's worth looking at some of the promotional offers. And
the other big thing to remember here is that almost all the sports is now available for streaming. You do not have to have cable. Your mileage may vary whether this actually saves you money or not. It kind of depends on what you need, but we are in an a la carte universe once this launches, because you can get all the NBC sports stuff through Peacock. You can get all the CBS sports stuff through Paramount Plus. You can get all of the ABC sports stuff now through ESPN. Fox is going to launch its own service where you'll be able to get the Fox sports stuff. So all the major providers of sports coverage in the United States, and I'm forgetting Warner Brothers, but that's available through Max. They're all covered. You can get everything if you want. Yeah. Without having to get a cable subscription. And you can decide which ones are important to you. If you're like, I'm not really into the NHL and the NBA, maybe you don't need the Max sports subscription, right? You can stick with a few of the others.
Maybe it'll make us more social somehow. Now, hear me out. Back in the day, well, first of all, when I was growing up, we didn't have cable because it wasn't offered in my area of the woods where I lived. But like, you would have that one friend who could like buy a boxing match on pay-per-view. Everybody would go over to the friend's house and be like, yeah, cool. You're like, well, I cannot watch this. Even if I don't like you that much, I'm coming over. So maybe there's a little bit of this going on. Like, all right, I'm the ESPN house. You're the Peacock house, and because
or you got that one friend who just subscribes to everything.
And then that friend
you all go
just
to their,
has to
that
have a
friend's
lot of
house.
pizza parties.
Yeah, her house becomes the most popular.
Everyone brings a food offering. Like, it's like, thank you for giving me access to your subscription. And you bring like a bowl of nachos or something.
Yes.
I mean, I love a good potluck.
I offer you wings.
Yeah, love a good
But
potluck.
not too spicy.
Yeah.
The potluck, the only potluck, I'm sorry, we talked about potlucks and I'm hungry right now, so I'm thinking of food. But the only potluck I don't like is one that's a little bit like, just bring whatever you're in the mood for. And then you're like, oh, so there's like 4 plates of nachos and kind of nothing else.
But that's the luck in
I
potluck,
know.
right?
Well,
Sometimes
that's
it's
true.
pot unlucky.
No, you have to. You have to.
Pot unluck.
Yeah.
We've all been there. Where I'm like, oh, more carrots and spinach dip.
Yeah.
You know,
We might have thought about this ahead of
it's
time.
really healthy, but at the same time, I don't know. You want you got any sliders or something else?
You're hungry. You haven't eaten lunch, have you?
I did. I ate a lot, and I burned through it very quickly.
I ate a lot, and I want to talk about sliders.
And I want more.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Food is that way. But no, I mean, I'm actually impressed that $30 actually doesn't sound like a lot to me.
Really?
To get all of ESPN.
You
Because
just
I
have
was
to.
hoping
You have to want you want a lot of sports. That's what you have to want.
If you're in a house, say you're in a roommate situation, you got 3 other roommates, and you all do a round robin of what sports or games you guys watch. I mean, I was helping my father-in-law not too long ago, and he was paying $30 for whatever the MLB package. And I mean, granted, you wouldn't get all the games, but you get different sports instead of just baseball.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing about ESPN is I think folks underestimate their coverage. They have all the sports right now. Now, granted, they're losing some of their baseball, so we'll see what happens with that. They're not going to be doing Sunday Night Baseball, but it's not like they're not going to do baseball at all. And they have the NFL, they have hockey, they have NBA. Like, ESPN is the one where you're like, if I don't need to see every single game, I just want to see a big game every day, this is the one to get.
Well, and I mean, even on days that I don't care about one single sport that has happened, I still watch SportsCenter. Now, you might not like SportsCenter, and that's fine, but it's like that. There's a lot of content that people are just like, oh yeah, that's like part of my nightly routine.
Yeah, and we didn't even get to some of the bells and whistles. They're going to have a bunch of betting tools in here. They're going to have personalization. There's a personalized SportsCenter that you'll be able to take advantage of, where it knows like what teams you like, and so it assembles a SportsCenter that focuses on the sports and teams you like. So there's some other cool stuff that they're going to be able to do here that you just can't do on a linear feed.
Well, speaking of, sorry, Tom. Speaking of what folks want to know about, where could they possibly let us know?
I'm glad you asked. One way to let us know is our subreddit. You could submit stories and vote on them at reddit.com/r/Daily Tech News Show.
You see, when I screw up, Tom does not miss a beat. Tom does not miss a beat. But we are talking about entertainment, so let's move on to kids-focused edutainment, the term is often known as. Combination of educational and entertainment media seems to be on the rise more than ever. Roger, tell us more.
So Moonbug Entertainment, the parent company of Cocomelon, the 2 to 5 year old focused YouTube channel. My kids both have been raised at least on 2 years of their content. Announced a feature film. Feature film would be produced in cooperation with DreamWorks Animation, with no set time, but has been greenlit for production. Now, the thing to understand about Cocomelon is it launched back in 2006 on YouTube as a YouTube channel with a focus on kind of preschool kind of age child content. So learning your ABCs, how to count, how to be polite, how to share, all those things. It was a very simple but very addictive property. In fact, I remember when we had our first child in 2015, YouTube had a number of these YouTube child-focused channels. And, Cocomelon is one of the few that has really hit the big mainstream. Back in 2020, it actually launched on Netflix. If you go to Netflix, you'll find Cocomelon. But it was a channel that got its start in YouTube. And what's so fascinating to me is watching over the years a lot of these kind of creators coming up and then moving beyond just the confines of YouTube. Not that they disappear off YouTube, but they grow into it. The other one is Blippi. I remember when he started, and now it's its own channel on Netflix with a different person playing Blippi, not the guy who started it. He sort of franchised it out. The last birthday party I went to like 3 years ago, I remember seeing in the park someone had a Blippi birthday party, had someone dress up like Blippi and do all those things. And I've always been curious to know, or not curious to know, but sort of fascinated the fact that YouTube has sort of become this sort of springboard for so many people who have ideas who not necessarily don't have the money to spend on an actual like live TV studio or all the budget for the most amazing graphics, but they make solid content. Things that come to mind are Tasting History with Max Miller. There's a number of sort of brief history shows focused on a particular niche, whether it's the Roman Empire, World War II, World War I, things about political history, things about just American or a particular country's history, or maybe just a very generalized view of world history. And it's just there's so much content there that it feels like that's the go-to place for anyone looking to maybe fund something that becomes bigger, but already has an established viewing base.
Mr. Beast, another good example.
Yeah.
Just got his Prime Video series renewed by Amazon. And it's not like Mr. Beast was small on YouTube, but still another example of expanding to other areas. YouTube,
or like going into back to stuff for little kids. Ms. Rachel, I didn't know who Ms. Rachel was until very recently, because I was babysitting for some friends. They went to a movie, and I'm like, I'll babysit your kids. They're cool kids. And they're like, Ms. Rachel, and I'm like, what's that? How do we do it? And they're like, I don't know. It's like a YouTube thing. Figure it out, Sarah. And so we're watching it, and I'm just sort of like, okay, this is definitely, not in my demo, but huge, like a huge following.
And it's huge, but also the platform, because YouTube is nonlinear. The kids, my kids, like, I want to watch that particular Cocomelon video, so we got to go back and find it. But you can replay it, as opposed to say something like Sprouts, which was kind of a spinoff from PBS Kids, which was its own cable channel devoted to that same demographic. It was very linear. You just had to watch what was on. So if you missed Doodle McNoodle, you'd have to wait until it rotated back around again in like an hour. And so it has that very sticky nature of which streaming video is infamous for. But as you raise people up on this content, they become older people with more disposable income, and either it's nostalgia or just pleasant memories, fond memories, or familiarity. It all comes together, and you can squeeze the juice or squeeze the orange for more juice as they get older.
I think that
Cocomelon in 2006, somebody, let's say, was 8 years old, would be 27 now.
Yeah.
Right. So now they're looking back like, oh, remember when we watched Cocomelon when I was a kid? Like,
yeah, maybe they have kids who watch it now.
Well, yeah, right. I want to introduce
you
you
to
to
my kids
Cocomelon.
with Sesame Street, right? I grew up on Sesame Street. They're gonna grow up. They didn't really take to Sesame Street as well as Cocomelon, which kind of tells you like how well they can sort of narrowcast some of this content, but it has some of the same flavor, maybe not the same level of thought and academic analysis and how to create this programming, but it still works.
Well, you were half joking earlier, Roger, where it's like sometimes I just want my kids to sit in front of something and stop crying. Yeah. That parents, I think, across the board say we all have those moments, and I think you hit on something really interesting. Is going back to when I was, I don't know, between 2 and 5, I watched Sesame Street every single day, but it only came on our local PBS affiliate one time a day. And my mom always laughs about how she's like, it was right when I had to start dinner, so it was perfect because that you would just sit there and not like be in my hair when I had to do other things. But I couldn't just watch Sesame Street whenever I wanted to. It was all, it was all a schedule. The rest of the time, it's like that channel is showing all sorts of adult stuff that's, not even for kids. The idea that, you can read a book to a child. Kids like repetition, right? If they like that book, they want the book again and again and again. It's right there. It's on demand. So the idea of kids programming, or I mean, really for any age, but particularly kids, this kind of stuff, it works so well because they're like, I want that one again. I want that particular episode of the My Little Pony show again, right now.
I mean,
things become kids programming that maybe weren't even intended to. My niece, my 4-year-old niece, loves watching Kirby playthrough videos because she just likes the Kirby character. She likes the storyline of the Kirby video games. There are Kirby shows. She doesn't like those as much. She just wants to watch the playthrough video.
I find it interesting at how the very nature of YouTube allows for this, but also how well, people used to, for the longest time, it was always like you needed a certain training, you needed a certain background to do sort of any kind of production work, stuff that was real professional, polished, and compelling. But like all these YouTube creators have sort of proven that to be a lie. There are a lot of people who've never done it before, or maybe they've just had.
They just get the training other ways.
Yeah.
The good ones learn what good lighting is. They learn about shooting and all of that from the internet, from other creators, instead of going to school for it.
But more importantly, they learn how to make compelling content, right? If you make content that is just garbage, people are not going to tune in. Or maybe they do and they leave it on something else. But Max Miller, he does a really good show. If anyone's not familiar, it's called Tasting History, and not that I know Max or anything. But the idea is that it's a cooking show with a side of history. So if he makes a particular dish, for example, he did depression stew, one episode. He tells you what the ingredients were from he picks one particular recipe to make. He makes it, but as he makes it, he waits for it to cook. He explains the origin of it, what went into it, the reasons why. And so you get an understanding of why the food is the way it is or made the way it is. So it's not just like out of context, like, hey, this is what my grandmother used to make back in the 1920s.
And if you believe and trust this person that this is good information, it's like, that's a very get ready with me on TikTok type vibe.
Oh,
right?
totally. Yeah.
It's like you're like, I'm hanging with you and you're doing something, but there's more context to it.
Do you think these things are always by design or luck? Because what I always think about is the fact that YouTube has literally millions of people trying various ideas, and some of them are going to catch on, right? But that doesn't mean the person actually knew good storytelling. Maybe they just lucked into it.
I think it's both. I really do. I think some people manage to capture that lightning in a bottle, and other people have a really good background in the material that they're discussing. There's a couple of physics lectures that are university lectures, and they talk about either quantum physics or classical physics, but they can explain it. And at least for me, it's interesting. I wouldn't say it's everyone's cup of tea, but it is a very fascinating way to look. And you don't necessarily have to look at a closed circuit TV of a camera that's set all the way in the back of the classroom. That that the audio sounds bad and you really can't see what they're pointing at on the chart. But there is a uniqueness to it because a lot of this stuff, again, it's not just repetitive, but it's relatively short, like 15, 20 minutes. And if you ever forget, like some of the physics stuff I do, I go back and rewatch it just in case. Like, oh, what was that individual talking about? They were talking about this principle. Don't remember. Let me rewatch it. It's sort of a cheat sheet.
Larry wants to know what show you were talking about. I think he was talking about the Max Miller thing.
Oh, tasting history with Max Miller. It's great. It's one of the most.
I like the idea of this because I like cooking shows.
Depends
but
on
also,
the history. Some history I don't want to taste.
I ran across
That's
it
true.
by accident during the pandemic, and I was
Potato
hooked.
famine day, everyone. Oh, boy.
Latrine digging in World War One, not my episode.
Well, no, he did one on like garum, which is was a fish-based sauce that was used in a lot of Roman cookery. And so he explains how that's made. He talked about fast food in the Middle Ages and what you would expect to see. One of the things he said or discovered was that in the Middle Ages, it's not that everyone cooked for themselves. If you lived near a town, there were like restaurants, or not restaurants, but fast food that you'd order just a bowl, and they would give you a bowl of whatever food, and you would eat it. And it wasn't necessarily like bargain basement stuff, but it was affordable for most of the people.
Well, it's like, and we all, I think, depending on where you live, there's some sort of signature dish that you associate with a certain place. And, for example, like cioppino, great fish stew. San Francisco has a lot of cioppino. It's like, I mean, sure, it's probably North Beach, but like there's probably a story behind, the first Italian family that, was successful with cioppino before other restaurants started picking it up. Because it's not native to San Francisco.
Well,
right. Or
there is a
tacos.
time where we
LA
weren't doing
tacos,
cioppino.
San Francisco Mission style burritos. Yeah, there's a lot of good.
There's food is one of the greatest ways to learn about history that I have found, especially because if you're hungry, you can eat it and kind of, but in a way you kind of taste the history, like tasting history.
Yeah.
Man,
That's a
I'm
well-known
plugging a
thing.
show and I don't even know the guy. I should get him on.
It's not an ad. You just like the show. That's
It's
okay.
a really good show.
We all have these shows. I mean, I watch Renovation Aloha all the time. And I don't know why. I'm just like, I want to watch people flip houses on various islands of Hawaii.
Yeah.
So it goes.
I would love to flip houses for a living. I'd be broke, but
Oh man, but you should watch the show. I mean, they really they take on some bad houses, and they do a good job. But yeah, it's a lot
It's
of work.
weird too because I know you know this. They all have the same storyline.
Yeah,
But for some reason you're like, yeah, but the formula works.
it's a
I get
before and after thing.
Yeah.
well, it is.
It's the whole like, oh gosh, how are we gonna do
Yeah,
this?
there's just something
Can
in your
we
little
do this?
mammal brain that's like, but
And
I
you
want to
wanna
see how it
the
turns
payoff.
out. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You all give us payoffs when you respond to stuff that we talk about on the show, and one way to do that is in our mailbag. So let's check it out.
Yeah, Anon Jr. wrote in about our better wood discussion on Monday's show, posting on our Patreon. I like the idea of this reinforced wood, but let's ask the really important questions. Is it a good tone wood for guitars? How much better will my heavy metal sound? Because it's strong as metal. Will this make student instruments durable enough to survive preteens and teenagers while being musically sound enough to help them learn? And for this, I mean any stringed instruments. You don't want to know some of the things that have come through the repair shop.
Oh wow, that's a good point. I mean,
I wonder if
unless
you
you're
could
like
use
on
this wood for
stage
guitars.
smashing a guitar on purpose,
I
which
mean,
happens.
Because it's so compressed, I wonder what kind of tone it has. But I don't know that it wouldn't have a tone.
It would have a colored tone. I mean, certain instruments have a
You know this for sure?
because I've broken my fair share of stringed instruments.
But no, I'm talking about the compressed.
Oh no, but like I
the
know
new wood.
because I talked to the
what
guy
kind
who.
of tone would the compressed wood from that we talked about yesterday have?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it depends on how you make.
Because there's like a
shape the instrument.
reverb thing, I guess, that you would have
Because
to
there's
take into
internal
consideration.
bracing you put like in a cello, so it doesn't have a side harmonic as you're playing. Like you're just listening to the actual note you're playing. You don't have any distortion. But I mean, that'd be great. I mean, I would do it. I used to. I think I broke 3. I didn't break 3. I broke 1 and I damaged the other 2.
On purpose? Were you angry?
No,
Roger's
I was
just
in.
an
I was in
angry
school.
cello child.
It's just
Roger
you
used to
don't-
get up on stage and jam on the cello and then smash it. That was his whole shtick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're like,
Before Ozzy
again.
Osbourne, there was me.
The Ozzy Osbourne of cello, Roger Chang.
Also on Patreon, Dean wrote in about our conversation last week on AI testimony being used from beyond the grave, being used in a court of law from somebody who was no longer alive to give what's the word for it?
Victim impact statement.
Thank you. Victim impact statement. Dean says, here's an odd take. I'm not one for legacy. I'm an atheist. Once I'm dead, all else is irrelevant to me. So I know I won't mind if there was an artificial me testifying. I give full control to my family after my death, as, if anything, it will affect them directly. I thought that was a good point. I mean, whether you're an atheist or not, I think a lot of people are like, this could help people that I care about once I can't do it anymore.
But I think the point wasn't like, I'm going to be aware of this happening. I think the point was like, I don't like the idea of this happening after I die, whether I'm aware of it or not. I think some atheists would be like, no, I don't want you using my image.
Yeah, like
for
I'm
this.
gone.
In fact, if there are any atheists in the audience that feel that way, let us know. I'm sure Dean would be curious to hear that as well. But I think Dean's point is still a good one, which is I want my family to be able to use whatever I have left to help themselves out. And I get that. I definitely do.
And I mean, this would specific. There's going to be a lot of court cases where this is not going to be relevant, but in specific cases where it could matter to whoever else is around. I think I'm on your side with this one, Dean. I think it gives me a little bit of the ick because I'm just like, I don't know. Sometimes the idea of me still being alive if I'm not alive anymore is like, nah, guys, I've crossed. But again, depending on the situation, if it can help somebody out, and I know that it can also be a manipulative thing to not help someone else out, but it does seem like a tool where if used in a way that is meant for the greater good is a good tool. That's what I think, in theory.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. To me, it's personally for me. After I'm gone, I would want people I know in charge of administering my image. So maybe I would leave some instructions, but mostly I don't care. I just if it's helpful to the people I care about, then go for it. Do whatever you need to do.
It's weird. Philosophically, I'm sort of on the fence because I understand Dean's point, but I also feel that like I'm dead. I shouldn't be really speaking other than what I've already said.
But you aren't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then it turns into a question of like, well, why are you speaking? Is it just nostalgia?
Then we're talking about the Mickey 17 movie. Yeah, like, is it actually if it's close enough to you? Is it actually?
Or like, do I do like a bunch of pre-recorded videos that says "You killed me," and then that would be the end of the movie?
Yeah, that sounds like a fun movie.
Yeah, I don't know if that would stand up in court.
Judge, you're in contempt.
If you have thoughts on anything we talk about on the show, and we know you do, and thanks, special thanks to the patrons who they message us directly on Patreon. A lot of good conversations going on Patreon directly, but you can also send your feedback via regular old email, feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com.
During the show, people submit titles, and some of them are pretty darn entertaining. The top vote getter right now at dtns.showbot.tv is from Batfink 2001. This week only, a Seinfeld marathon, only $200.
Well, thankfully, YouTube TV isn't that expensive yet. But hey, give them a year.
X1011 suggested 10% of your daily accessibility. That's in the nutrition label. ESPN Your Streams from Fred819. The Ozzy Osbourne Effect from Batfink 2001. The Osbourne Effect, get it? Cooking with a Side of History from Clinton Woodward.
Kids Zoe brings bacons. Who loves a good pot unlock?
Pot unlock. Sarah, what did we go with?
We went with Fred819's ESPN Your Streams.
Thank you, Fred819. Also, big thanks to everybody who watches us on LinkedIn and YouTube and Twitch. Zoe gave us some bits today. PC Milesy gave us some bits. Paley Glendale gave us some bits. We got a follow from Camo05. Thanks, everybody, for being along with us. And big thanks to all our patrons at patreon.com/DTNS.
Indeed. Well, if you're an Apple user or you just like to follow the news, maybe you consider yourself a power user, or like even you look at other people and say, Apple hipster people. We're kind of the rest of them. That's me and Eileen Rivera. We talk about all things Apple every week on Apple Vision Show, and mostly what Apple's doing, but also what the future holds, what the vision is for Apple. And we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about this week because if you were listening earlier in the show, we had a lot of Apple news. So get subscribed now at applevisionshow.com. You can also watch us live here on DTNS Live, Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That is 2000 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. Tomorrow, we're back with Scott Johnson talking about the switch to kill switch. He'll know.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.